Hi there. I'm talking today about the announcement yesterday by the Australian federal government that they are going to provide what's called a job keepers allowance to companies who either have let people go in the last few weeks post COVID-19 or are contemplating that as a next step, and obviously that will apply to an awful lot of companies. This morning particularly, I've been talking to a lot of my candidates about what this might mean for them, particularly those who have been through that recent situation of being let go because of the coronavirus scenario and the ensuing chaos it's brought economically speaking. And one of the things that struck me was a lot of people didn't seem necessarily as across this as they should be. And what I mean by that is they knew obviously it existed because we've all been watching the news, but they hadn't necessarily thought about what it might mean in terms of them making a case to a previous recent employer and or their existing employer who might be sitting there thinking very soon about having to make some cutbacks. And where I'm going with this is a really great scenario for companies and a potentially okay one for those people who have recently been let go. Given that at the moment the job market is not going to be full of great opportunities for anyone just to step into, if you are potentially looking at what could be, quite a few weeks, maybe even unfortunately quite a few months of not having the kind of strong, robust, well-paid job that you would ordinarily expect to have, this job keepers, that does matter, job keepers allowance could make quite a big difference. What I mean by this is that a company is now effectively going to be paid by the government $1,500 a fortnight, which they can then choose to pay on to, let's call it Mark, and say, okay, Mark, you work for us now at a lower rate than you used to before we had to let you go because of what had happened. If you're the company, this is basically a free hit. Mark, the employee, no longer really costs you anything. Now, I know people will say, oh, hang on, Mark, wages are not the only cost. Yes, that's true, but bear in mind that the other costs were all budgeted for a long way back, well before coronavirus ever existed. So to some extent, the cost to the business is really about wages, and that's why they've let people go, because the wage cost is so significant. If you remove that wage cost issue, then that business in theory goes, okay, well, this guy Mark, we did like him before, we only let him go because we couldn't afford him. Well, now if the government's going to pay us to keep Mark, why wouldn't we? And for those of you who work in sales roles, here's the even better news, I would think, is that you have a case now to make to a company that not only can they bring you back effectively for nothing, but because you are a salesperson and because you are revenue generating, you can make a very clear and measurable positive difference to that company when you get back there. Now, I agree, no matter how brilliant a salesperson you are, you may not be able to make a great deal of difference in the next 2 or 3 weeks, unless the company you're working for sells toilet roll or face masks, in which case you probably wouldn't have been let go anyway. So let's assume that that may not be something you can activate right now, but I think you can put that seed in someone's mind in a company, an MD's mind or a general manager's mind, that if we hire this person who we did used to love and we had no problem with them before, and we can hire them for nothing, effectively, and they can generate revenue for us, maybe not tomorrow, but certainly down the track as the weeks and months roll through, and the government's going to pay for all this, why wouldn't you? So please, candidates and job seekers, get on the front foot on this. Do not wait for your former employer, and depending on how things are with your current employer, if you have not been let go as yet, you can decide perhaps when it might be time to have this kind of conversation. But certainly if you were let go, get in touch with your former employer, get on the front foot, build a case around these points. Don't just sort of say to them, oh, well, can I come back and what do you think? Build a case, build a story. One of my candidates who I spoke to this morning, who is very across all this, he then taught me through it, but he then sent me the business case he had already written up and that he has sent in to his former employer. And it's very persuasive. It doesn't just say, hey, it's free, give it a go, it actually says a lot more around the value he can bring, the long-term value his presence now will have for that business. So yeah, you've got a bit of work to do and you've got to make a case, but hey, particularly if you're a salesperson, that's very natural. But anyone in business needs to be able to build a business case for why they are an asset. But this, I'll say, Australian federal government job keepers allowance, it does allow you to have a case to make. It gives you an opportunity. So please, guys, make the most of that. Good luck with those conversations, and please let me know how you go. Thank you.